All right, guys. While everybody else is watching the Severance Season 2 finale, we are going live with another Actors Hall of Fame. Because I watch them in the morning. Dustin, I don't know about you, but I watch Severance in the mornings because it's just easier for me personally. But again, not saying I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the finale. I've done no reading. I have no clue. I have absolutely
Zip
zero
lips
clue.
on my end.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see you. I see what you mean. All right, we're not going to talk about Severance anymore. We're here to talk about again one of the acting greats, one of the acting legends, one of the people who you could argue is like, the reason for why we have acting as it is, why we iconicize actors the way that we do now. The one and only Mr. Robert De Niro has a new movie coming out this weekend. Actually, not too soon after his previous movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, which got him an Oscar nomination. Actually, what am I saying? That was 2 years ago. I thought that was, oh my God, I thought that was last year. I'm literally in a time loop right now. Oh my God. We're doing the Robert De Niro Hall of Fame tonight is what I'm trying to get at. And again, this is a legendary actor. He's got 50 plus years of work to comb through. What's it called? I did my best to not just hit the hits, but I don't know. I think my list is going to be a little eclectic and interesting. Like I said, he's got so many movies, so many performances. This is a big one, to say the least. And yeah, you got anything else that you want to say before we get started?
No, I just think he's probably the best actor alive still. He's probably he has the most body of work. Does he have the best body of work? Arguable, but he has at least 25 great performances, and we're going to highlight most of them tonight.
Yes.
And he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yes, we are. Only thing that I don't think we've ever had this conversation before, and we'll probably save it for after the credits, but are you a Pacino or De Niro? Who do you hedge more towards? Because I don't think we've ever had that conversation.
We might have before, but very briefly. It's close. Depends on the eras, honestly.
The eras definitely help, but I just
I
feel
honestly would give Pacino the 70s.
Pacino 100% the 70s. My whole thing is that for me, it's kind of who I gravitate more to and who I relate more to.
De Niro gets the 80s and he gets the 90s.
I would give the 90s to Pacino. I would give the 90s to Pacino.
Honestly, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, I would go the 90s Pacino. And then they both
2000s.
Yeah.
I would give that to De Niro because Pacino didn't really do anything in the 2000s. That was that.
Yeah,
amazing.
He really didn't do anything aside from Insomnia, which that's really
that's pretty much
How can we forget Righteous Kill? Their third collaboration.
2010s, I think we could still say De Niro. Yeah, I would say De Niro overall.
Yeah, definitely De Niro overall, and into the 2020s as well. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to have that conversation because I just realized we've never had that talk before. I think I gravitate more so towards Pacino overall because I think that of the types of performances that he gives, I find that to be more relatable than De Niro's performances. And I'll get into that.
De Niro might have more range, is the thing.
See, I
don't think
disagree
Pacino has. All right, well, we'll go through the list.
All right,
we'll tackle would Pacino be better in so and so?
Well, that's the thing,
and then we'll have that discussion.
Well, that's the thing, because just because one has more range than the other doesn't necessarily mean that they're right for certain parts. Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that once the show starts. This is the Robert De Niro Hall of Fame. Yeah, so basically to kind of continue off that point that I was saying before the show started, it's just that I look at the types of movies and roles that Pacino does, not necessarily the big iconic ones like The Godfathers, The Dog Day Afternoons and such, but I think of more kind of as he went later in his career, when he got into kind of his yelling phase, which kind of someone may argue that he hasn't left. Like The Devil's Advocates, The Heats, the Any Given Sundays, hell, even, what's it called? Even with the clips that I've seen of Scent of a Woman, which I still have yet to see in its entirety. But I don't know. There's just a longing, you could say, that I find in Pacino's work that I kind of...
Oh, I agree. I mean, he's also one of the greatest actors of all time.
Again, we're literally debating, who is the greatest of like arguably the two of the greatest living actors ever. My whole thing is that I usually find that there's a coldness to De Niro's performances that I don't find with Pacino. De Niro is very
Okay.
cold with his portrayal, even with his portrayal of the younger incarnation of Vito Corleone in Godfather Part
Sure.
2. I find that again there's a coldness to him, and you understand why, given the movie
The
that
context
you
of
don't
the
have.
first one.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but even still, I find that you don't have that coldness with Brando, and part of that is the age thing. But I look at his movies
No, I don't really agree. I don't.
like
I think they have the same coldness, and like
okay,
I think Brando, he aged. I think he's more lighthearted seeming because he's more confident and he's more of like he's established himself as a
mm,
crime boss and he's had these grown sons now and he's more of a likable figure. Like people get likable as they get older usually. Yeah, I think it makes sense in the way Brando played it as opposed to how De Niro has that like coldness in it. I mean, I
right.
don't know why we're talking about that, but like
Yeah, I was about to. Well,
I
well, it
just
makes
I
for like
assume that's probably going to be on your list. But like,
yeah.
what do you want to? How do you want to establish this? Because it's
Well,
like he has so
so
many performances, so many
exactly.
different eras. I mean, we like he's directed movies like A Bronx
Yeah.
Tale, which are great, but like he's had a lot of like not ups and downs, but like a lot of questionable periods,
Yes.
I would
Yes.
say.
There
Like
is.
or it's
I.
like he might have done a little bit too many comedies. Where
Yeah.
in that case, I'd be like, maybe Pacino could have done more
Yeah,
comedies.
yeah. See, and that's funny that you mentioned that because again, I think
Maybe
that it's ironic that you mentioned that because I think that even though Pacino, I feel like
Pacino's
by and large,
funny.
exactly, that's the thing. Pacino has not done as many comedies as De Niro has done. De Niro has done
No,
a lot of comedies, but
too
Pacino, I
many,
think, is a much better
dude.
comedic actor than De Niro is.
These are not on my list, but all the Fockers movies,
Never seen a single one of them.
Rocky and Bullwinkle,
Never seen it.
what just happened, the Barry Levinson movie, which he's doing Alto Nights this weekend. He did Brazil, which is a dark, Terry
Yes.
Gilliam comedy. He did The Intern. He did Ezra last year with Bobby Cannavale, which was about
Yes.
a stand-up comedian. He just came out. They just released the Comeback Trail, the George
Finally.
Gallo movie.
Jesus Christ, how
That
many
saw
fucking years has that movie been on the shelf?
five,
Yeah, I was about
literally
to say, I'm like,
five.
you've had that on your letterbox for years.
I know, five. And then they analyzed that sequel. I mean, Dirty Grandpa. We're
Yeah.
just going down
He's done so many comedies.
so many different
Any of
kinds of
these movies.
comedies to varying degrees, but it's like over the and there's some that I haven't seen. There's some family comedies I haven't seen of his, but like right, like wasn't there one? There was another one he did that was with Grandpa in the title, right? Where it was called The War with
The
Grandpa.
War with Grandpa, yes.
I didn't see that bullshit. You know what I mean? Where it's like I don't got to see everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so many brave cells I have
Yeah, I
left.
was about
But
to
like,
say. Yeah, I was about to say.
but
You've seen a lot of shit. You've
oh
seen a lot of shit that like I would
yeah.
just be like, man, I cannot. I do not
Well,
have the time to waste my time with that
it's
bullshit.
on, and I have time. Play. Why
Oh
did I
man.
do that? That's my life.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I just feel like every time, yeah, I just feel like again, like I look at all the De Niro movies. You're right. You just listed off like 20 comments. I haven't seen any of those movies because partly I
Shark
think the
Tale.
Shark Tale, yeah, but that's like a kid. That's a kid's movie.
It's comedy.
I think the only like comedies, quote unquote, that I have on here for De Niro are Las Vegas, Joy, and Shark Tale. And I guess well, I don't know. Is Amsterdam a comedy? Like, would you classify that as a comedy?
Yeah, it's not Joy as well. They're not like the
Yeah,
comedy
those aren't like
thing.
comedy
Like,
comedies. That's the thing. So that's so
no.
funny that you brought up the fact that De Niro has done like 20 plus comedies, but I don't think he's a good comedic actor. It's ironic because he could do almost anything except that. But Pacino,
Wow.
who I think is an incredibly comedic actor, he's made me laugh super hard in some roles that are
You
very
really don't think
that's
wow.
fun.
Wait a minute. You really don't think De Niro's funny?
It's not that I don't think he's funny.
He's hilarious in some movies.
He's funny
In a
in
lot of
movies that
movies,
it's
actually.
funny almost like in movies where he doesn't realize that he's in a comedy. If he
No, if
realizes
it's
that he's
not
in a
no,
comedy,
it's no, there's I get your point, but, like, he is a funny actor, and that's my point where it's like, there's a
I
few
didn't say he wasn't a
comedies.
funny actor. I said he's not a particularly very funny actor.
No, he can be very funny with the material, like in Wag the Dog or in, like, in some scenes in The Comedian, directed by Taylor Hackford, but, like, No, but there's like there's comedies we're going to talk about soon, but there's a couple there's two prime comedies, like, you know, studio comedies that I would highlight in particular. One that's on my list and one's in my honorable mention.
Okay.
So like, which are phenomenal
Okay.
comedies for what they're
Yeah.
going, and he's completely well cast in both of them.
See,
Where it's like, and Pacino could have definitely gotten roles like that, but like the only what was the biggest comedy Pacino was in? Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill. Exactly.
Dunk,
Exactly.
dunk, Dunkachino,
Dunkachino. It,
Dunkachino.
yeah. And that's exactly why I think that he never did another comedy after that, because that was his one big experience.
Nah, he's done no, that's the thing. He's done like indie comedies, like De Niro has
Well, he's
too.
done like
Like
a lot. Pacino's
like
done a lot of
Danny
like
Collins,
bad indie comedies, like because he also had the fucking like the
Danny
you know
Collins,
he
and like
the Irish the Kill the
Simone.
Irishman or whatever, and
Yeah.
he had Pacino was in the fucking he was in Jiggly, like he had just
Oh,
had some
Gio.
straight
That was a very small
stinkers,
part. That was a very small
stinkers.
part. Dick Tracy.
Yeah, oh
He's
god,
just
don't make
pretty
me mention. I
comedic. He's
fucking
like the
hate that
comedic
movie so
relief in
much.
that, right? I don't like it either. It's
And he
pretty
got
bad.
nominated for that movie over
Yes.
Godfather 3, which
Over
regardless of whether or
Gary
not,
Oldman. Over Gary
yes,
Oldman in State of
yes.
Grace, which you need to watch.
Oh, so you say,
He's in,
oh no, you're right. That was 2 years before Dracula. I was thinking Dracula, but yeah,
but no, for Gary Oldman in State of Grace, amazing.
okay,
With him and Sean Penn, absolutely.
yeah.
Oh,
You've talked about that movie.
oof. I can't wait until we do Gary Oldman.
Yeah,
I've
Gary
seen
Oldman is
enough
coming.
Gary
He's
Oldman.
coming soon.
That's that's gotta be at least the next year or
Yeah.
so.
Oh,
But like,
definitely. No, I
but
love Gary Oldman too much. Gary Oldman's one of my favorites.
Gary
So
Oldman's great.
yeah,
But
he's
like,
awesome.
but De Niro is just, what else could you say about the fucking guy? Like, he's like a
Yeah,
definitive,
he's
like, he's the reason why a lot of people get into acting.
yep.
He's like has so many iconic performances that we're
He's
gonna go
truly done it
through.
all.
He's done all the genres you could think of. Even he was Frankenstein, right? I didn't even
Yep.
fucking
Yes, he
bother with
was.
that.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
He was
he's
Frankenstein.
like he's gone through all the genres. He's like he was in the Dakota Fanning movie, the hide and seek movie also.
Yep.
It's
A
like
horror movie.
I never saw that.
Yep. Also, and again, good with working with kind of up and coming actors.
Yeah,
This Boy's Life
and
with
directors.
DiCaprio.
Yeah, and directors
Yep.
also, like, he takes chances on directors
Yeah,
that
he's
he's
the one. He's the one that
confident in.
gave. He was the only one that was willing to let Chaz Palminteri do Bronx Tale the way that he wanted to, because
Yeah,
every other
with
studio
to act with
wanted
him
the
too,
story
yeah.
without Chaz.
Yeah, because Chaz wanted to act in it
Yes.
specifically. Like,
Yes.
he wanted to, like, they were gonna buy it anyway, but, like, he
Yes.
wanted to be
But
the
he
guy,
wanted to act in it, and he
which
wouldn't
was a
let them.
great choice.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, like, it would have been typical if it, like, at that point in De Niro's career to play, like, another, like, gangster kinda
Yeah.
role
Yeah.
instead of,
And
like,
even
the
I feel like
father.
even De Niro kind of knew that when he went to Chaz and told him that.
You've seen that, right?
Nope.
Bron
Didn't miss that
Wow.
one. Missed
Bronx
that
Tale's
one.
great.
That one and Deer Hunter were on my list to watch this
It's
past, and
not
I
what
didn't have time.
it's not one of the prime De Niro performances, but, like, he is very good in it as usual. Like, that's the thing, like, he has so many notable performances that, like, even his weaker performances aren't, like, some of the worst performances of all time. Like, I wouldn't say any of his performances rank, like, are, like, a fucking terrible, like, worthy, like, ranking, but, like, yeah, like, let's just get into it. Like, I just wanna
Yeah.
go through my
Yeah.
honorables
Go through the
first.
honorable mentions. I'm sure you have a lot more than me.
I'll just say my 10 honorable mentions
Okay.
because, like, number 20 is The Untouchables, which is a movie I really do not like. I genuinely don't like that movie. I've rewatched it within the last year. I don't like it. I'm sorry. It's cheesy, it's over the top. Every performance is corny except Andy Garcia, Sean Connery in an Academy Award winning performance.
Yeah. Somehow.
Question mark.
I know why he won, but
He's
continue.
very good in it, and he didn't die as soon as I thought he did in the movie, but he still didn't have enough screen time to warrant a win, at least. But he's great in it. Like, I'm not gonna shit on Sean Connery. I'm just saying, but fucking De Niro is Capone. Like, that's like,
Yeah.
I know it was supposed to be Bob Hoskins, but which would have been kind of perfect. But like De Niro being the backup is not a bad backup. That's all I'm gonna say. 19, Once Upon a Time in America. It's a
Wow.
movie
Okay.
I definitely like more than The Untouchables. It's a good gangster film. It's a
Hmm.
really impeccably well-made film. I've seen a lot of Sergio Leone's movies by this point. I just saw his, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly trilogy,
Yep.
and
Really good. Really, really good. I've recently completed that trilogy. That trilogy's amazing.
exquisite.
Amazing.
And yeah, De Niro is not playing one of his most savory characters in this, but it's a very good performance nonetheless. And it's more about the movie itself than De Niro, I would say. 18 this might be a shocker. This is an underrated pick, Limitless, where what he play a senator
That's
in
in my
that.
honorable mentions.
I honestly think he's really terrific, and like he knows about the drug and what Bradley Cooper is doing and everything, and then Bradley Cooper imagines like we covered in the Bradley Cooper episode, like the Limitless performance is such a star-making
Yes.
performance for Cooper that
Yes.
the fact that Cooper was like backed up by De Niro in this was really
Yeah.
solidifying.
Tells you something.
17, Cape Fear.
All right.
Scorsese's follow-up to Goodfellas, which is kind of odd, but yeah, very memorable performance as Max
Yes.
Cady. I never saw the original. I will. I believe Robert Mitchum was in
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I believe, and he makes an appearance in this movie as well. And I haven't seen this since high school, but all I remember thinking, yeah, this is pretty good. It gets a little bonkers, even like uncharacteristically so, even for a Scorsese movie,
Yeah.
like
And there's
in
a
like
reason for that. I'll get into
in
that
like a
when I cover it.
in like a campy way, but like he's terrific as this character, and Nick Nolte's excellent as usual, and Juliette Lewis in a terrific Academy Award nominated performance. 16, Copland. I gave you a chance and you blew
Blue.
it. One of the most underrated crime movies of the 90s, and he's just the perfect cherry on top to this film, playing a minor but important role as the big cop in the city who's like it works for internal affairs, I believe. Like he's like part of that. Like he's like one of the cops that goes after dirty cops, I'm pretty sure. And like I've seen the movie like 6 times and I'm not even whatever, you know what I mean. But like he's terrific, and and Stallone is so terrific, and it's a movie that's very undersung. And personally, my favorite James Mangold film, number 15, The Fan, directed by
Okay.
Tony Scott. Hey, Bubby, like it's
Yep.
terrific. Really good campy movie. Great. It's a movie that's definitely aged better than I thought it had since I saw it in high school. Really great starring role for De Niro, and great performance from Wesley Snipes as well as the guy who he's the fan of. And yeah, it's just a great thriller, great Tony Scott thriller. What else is there to say? Number 14, you. You're very good, you.
You very good. You're very
I can
good.
feel the juices rushing back to my balls as we speak. I mean, this is one of the great. Holy shit, Robert De Niro is funny, like kind of like revelation performances. Like this is like to me Harold Ramis's best film. It's one of Billy Crystal's best films. It probably might be my favorite Billy Crystal film. It might not be my favorite performance from him, but like he's excellent in this too. And it's hilarious that this movie came out the same year as
Same
The
year The
Sopranos,
Sopranos premiered. Yep.
and it's definitely a lot more comical, outwardly comical, and every beat works. I think this is one of the most rewatchable films of '99, and I think it doesn't get enough credit. And De Niro really plays this role to a T,
Yeah.
and
I gotta watch
one of
this
his best
movie.
characters. It's
Yeah,
one of my favorite characters of it.
I gotta watch this movie. I'll admit, like this one's on my list, but I think one of my favorite, all-time favorite Sopranos lines is the premiere of season 2 when Tony's sitting down with like another therapist who's basically like, "Yeah, I don't want anything to do with you," and he's basically like kind of like tries to be coy, and he's like, "And I saw analyze this," and Tony's response is not it's like that it's a movie. He's like, "Analyze this." It's a
Yeah,
fucking comedy.
yeah,
Incredible line. One of
yeah,
the
right.
all-time greats.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Number 13, The Godfather Part 2. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Because as great as he is in this movie and as good as his portions of the in the movie were, you you could make the argument like you could like have interspersed those parts into the first film
Oh yeah.
as far but which they've done like they've combined as you probably know they've
Yes. The
combined
combined version. Yes.
all of like
Of
but in like sequential
in
order
sequential
too,
order. Yes.
which
And
is
I
very
know.
which
And
I've
here's the
watched. It's
yes.
weird.
Yes,
but
and I know why Coppola did that, but I'll save that for when I get to it
and
on
a
my
lot
list.
of his performance is in Italian, which isn't a fault, but like it's just he's not as expressive as he is in American
Oh,
personally.
see, that's a plus
Like
for me. But
like
again,
he's terrific. I'm not saying he's not great in it. I'm just saying like it's not. I think Brando brought like a more like commanding, like not commanding, but like more like regal presence to the character that the first movie really needed. But I think it was a terrific origin character for him to play, and it was a good. It was great that he won the Oscar for it. But you could make the argument that it might be one of the more like, oh, maybe he won his first Oscar too soon, and it could have gone to somebody else, like maybe John Cazale,
mm,
or who's amazing
yeah,
as Fredo in
yeah,
Godfather Part Two.
yeah, I do hear that argument, and I'm like, damn, that argument has a lot of legitimacy to it.
And like he's like every movie he was in was a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah,
So it's like, all right, but number 12, and this was kind of difficult. 12, all right, I'll cover them both. Speaking of Cazal, the Deer Hunter and the Killers of the Flower Moon are my last two honorable mentions. Deer Hunter, because De Niro is so like intense and crazy and awesome in it, but like you could argue Christopher Walken steals the show, Meryl Streep, John Cazale, John Savage is phenomenal in it. Like and the direction itself of that film is just the star of that movie, kind of. It's a movie I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch soon, but I do really appreciate it. It's not one of my absolute favorites, like a lot of cinephiles, but I do appreciate it, and I do love Michael Cimino, and I gotta watch Heaven's Gate and Killers of the Flower Moon because he was just like this might be like, let me look, including Travis Bickle, the most diabolical character he's played. I would say probably the most diabolical character in Killers of the Flower Moon, and every scene he has is just so like the way he's like toying with Leonardo DiCaprio and everybody he's in contact is just like mesmerizing to watch. And he was definitely nominated for a reason and Oscar nominated for a reason. So Killers of the
yeah.
Flower Moon. And my number, you want me to go into my list?
I'll run through my honorable mentions
Okay.
first, but
Okay.
yeah, again, so many of those movies. Like, I wanted to fucking watch Deer Hunter so goddamn badly, and I'm
Ooh.
really mad that I did not watch it because I know for sure it would have made my list. I do have
Ooh.
another very long epic of that on there, but I know for a fact that Deer Hunter would have made my list if I'd seen it. My honorable mentions, like I said, I've not seen nearly as many De Niro movies as you, but my honorable mentions, I've got a decent amount. I have 9 honorable mentions. I have Limitless. I have Casino, even though I am not
Okay.
a fan of this movie, and I think he's tragically miscast, but he still delivers solid,
Still an
good work in
honorable
it.
mention.
Copland, Untouchables, which I finally watched, and I do like that movie a lot more than you. I understand what Brian De Palma was going for. He was again, Brian De Palma did this twice. He did it again with the first Mission Impossible, where he was really, really trying to pay homage to the TV show that it's based off of. I think he did
Yeah,
it
and
a
it was way less corny with
I
Mission
think he
Impossible.
did it. Well, that's the thing is he did it much
Way better.
better
It was like
with Mission
classy.
Impossible than with Untouchables. Because
He was a better fit for
Untouchables is a
yeah.
black and white TV show, and he was not the right fit for that movie. It was his idea of doing like a gangster movie, and like Brian De Palma's a thriller noir guy.
Yeah,
He's
he's
not a
not
gangster
really
director, but
well,
I still enjoyed it for what it was.
his best movie is Carlito's Way, though.
That is ironic, but also remember he directed Scarface as well. So, and
Well,
I
he's
always
not a
saw.
bad gangster director, but maybe he's not a good period
And
gangster
remember
director.
also too, you got to give credit to Scarface for Oliver Stone because they even De Palma I think even said that like yeah that Oliver Stone script told me everything that I needed to know about kind of
Sure.
the world and everything. And I always saw Carlito's Way. I know it's not the same character and everything, but I always saw Carlito's Way as like a spiritual successor
Dude,
to
he's Puerto
Scarface.
Rican. He's Puerto Rican. He's not Cuban.
Even though he's doing the worst Cuban accent I've ever heard in that movie, to the point where his
And
co-star Stephen
Scarface?
Bauer, yes, to the point where his co-star Stephen Bauer had to do a bad Cuban accent to match Pacino's, even though Stephen Bauer, who's actually Cuban, is like, yeah, that ain't a Cuban accent. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but that ain't a Cuban accent.
Yeah, but it's still very
Oh, it works, but it's not a
works.
Cuban accent.
No, Cuban, but he nailed it in Puerto Rican though. So like I don't know like how you can make that connection in
Yeah.
Carlito's Way.
Jackie Brown, again, a movie
Ooh.
that Again, I have gone back and forth with over the years. My relationship with this movie is very confused because, again, it's so unlike the rest of Tarantino's filmography. And De Niro itself, for the longest time, I was trying to figure out, it's like he's got Robert De Niro in a movie, and he's just kind of playing like a schlub. Like, I don't get it. But he is very funny, and he is kind of like, and he is, it's the only time that you really ever see De Niro play like a putz, which you don't really see happen that often. You know,
Right.
even in something like King of Comedy, he kind of knows what he's doing, you know, even though he has no idea what he's doing. You know, he's kind of just acting off the seat of the pants. This is the only time where you see him like kind of play a putz, and he kind of gets away with it, and he kind of doesn't get away with it, and things don't work out well for him at all, you know, because he wrongly assumes that his friends are going to be there for him. Next, his most underrated performance, if you ask me. And really the point where it's like, wow, I never knew that De Niro had this kind of a performance in him. Stardust. A criminally underrated movie, adaptation of a Neil Gaiman novel. My introduction to Charlie Cox, Daredevil himself. Massive cast in this movie. De Niro was in this movie as a closeted gay pirate. And then when he has to flip-flop back and forth between like the pirate versus like actually being gay, he does it so well that you're almost like, wait, what? Like, this is De Niro? Like, he's like the 8th or 9th character in the movie. He's not even really a main character. He's like a nothing supporting character, but he really infuses a lot into that role that I was not expecting. And then 13 Silver Linings Playbook, phenomenal in. It was kind of his big comeback after the kind of the 2000s era. David O. Russell, you know, was finally able to put him in something that was really worthy of his talents. Then 12 and 11 I have his most recent big comebacks, one of which he was nominated for, one of which he was not. 12 I have Irishman, 11 I have Killers of the Flower Moon. Both phenomenal late career stage performances from him, but just missed the cut for me. So, going into it, let's get started. What is your number 10?
Jimmy the Gent, Goodfellas.
That's number 10?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I'll admit, I was not expecting that.
He's not the focus of the movie.
You're right.
He might be the focus of the poster, but that's just because of the notoriety he brings to everything he's in. But like, he's a vital part of the film and has some of the most quotable lines and some of the most memorable moments of the movie. But he has more hard-hitting performances, in my opinion. He's so memorable that I can't not put it in my top 10. But Ray Liotta's amazing in it. Joe Pesci's incredible in it. Lorraine Bracco. He's like the third or fourth best performance in this movie.
Interesting.
Paul Sorvino's amazing in it too.
Yeah.
It's Scorsese's incredible direction. Is it his best Scorsese collaboration? No.
Okay.
But is it my favorite Scorsese movie? Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. See, this is what I mean. The quality of the movie does impact where it goes on the list. So.
And no, not only that, his performance is fantastic.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. And it plays a vital part in the movie. And even by the end, it's very haunting. The way his makeup is, too. It's just like, whoa. Didn't know De Niro could look like that. Even as a kid watching it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So that it has to be on the list.
Yeah. All right. Going into it. My number 10. Again, just from strictly a performance standpoint, I saw this movie very recently, and I was like, wow. I have never seen a Robert De Niro performance like this. Even if the movie itself is not that great. I had a lot of issues with the movie.
Ooh.
But Cape Fear.
Okay.
Did not see this one coming. I'm like, okay, like even though it's blatant category fraud, he's not the lead of the movie. Man, just talk about playing a scene-stealing psychopath in this movie, the likes of which one has ever. If anything, you could almost kind of make the argument that, like, I always make this argument that, like, every actor has that one Joker performance in them, and this was his Joker performance. Like, he is, again, insane and delighting in every single second of it. My problem with the movie is that the movie does this thing where it's trying to make him seem like this unstoppable, unkillable force to the point where they almost literally make him invulnerable, which is why the third act is kind of campy and ridiculous and over the top. Part of that, I think, comes from the production, because if you notice, this is an Amblin production. Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall are producers on this. Spielberg was originally supposed to direct this, and Scorsese was supposed to direct, I want to say, Hook, and they ended up switching movies, much for the better, I think.
Wow.
Or maybe it was something happened. I forget. It was on the Cape Fear rewatchables. There was a director swap. Spielberg was supposed to direct this. Scorsese was supposed to direct something else, and they swapped for it. And like I said, much to the better. Scorsese,
I
I
would have
think,
liked to see Spielberg's version.
it would have been
to be
interesting.
honest with
It
you.
would have been interesting. And honestly, I think it probably would have been better. But Scorsese doing this, it's so unlike any of the movies that he'd really done up to this point.
Like, even if it was R-rated too, like that could have been cool.
It could have been really interesting, especially again. But again, like, so
I want to see Spielberg do like a straight up like
he's never done like anything like that. That would have been really interesting and cool. Versus like I said, this is Scorsese's first choice after Goodfellas, which is how you know that he really had that juice after Goodfellas, even if he didn't win the Oscar. It's just he's paying homage to the classics with this one, but doing kind of like his own take. And not all of it works, but when it does, specifically with De Niro, oh man, is it on point. And you mentioned Robert Mitchum having a cameo from the original. You also had Gregory Peck in there as the original, but they did a role swap there where they have Mitchum as the lawyer helping out Nick Nolte and Gregory Peck as the one representing De Niro. When in the original it was switched. Mitchum was the De Niro part and Peck was the Nick Nolte part. But yeah, it's it's a terrifying performance. Again, the shit that he does with Juliette Lewis, but the fact that they almost weirdly have chemistry, even though it's sickening.
It's more terrifying in the first half than it is in the latter.
Oh, 100%. Because and again, that's the problem is by them
by the
trying
time
to make
when they're on the boat and everything, it's like, come on.
By the time they're like trying to show that he's like literally unkillable, that's when I'm like, okay, you kind of lost it. But for that first hour
where you're like on his face.
Right, but for that first hour where he's just like fucking with Nick Nolte and Nick Nolte can seemingly do like nothing to stop him. Oh,
and
when he was pretending, when he turned around and was revealed to be the maid dressed up as the, I was like, oh my god, like I thought I was watching a horror movie. It was incredible, great stuff.
All right, whatever. I'll move on. Number 9, Lewis, Jackie Brown. Got to be Jackie Brown. I'm surprised Jackie Brown's not in your 9 if you're going to give me that reaction for number 10. Jackie Brown is great. It's another one of my favorite movies. That's the thing. Most of these movies in my top 10, I'd say all of these movies are like probably in my top 100 of all time. I'd probably say, or at least top 150 of all time. Jackie Brown is a masterpiece, and I'd say Robert De Niro's. The fact that Tarantino wanted him as this character after Sylvester Stallone couldn't do it just really speaks a lot.
It was supposed to be Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yep. Oh man.
Ooh, I'm glad.
The tables are turning in my head.
Yep, I'm glad.
I know you are. I kind of think I would have liked to have seen Stallone in this movie.
It probably would have been brilliant. But
probably would have.
But the fact that it, like you already mentioned, like the fact that he's so typecast in this film, like not like so like, what's the word? Like he's so like
against type.
Yeah, he's against type in this movie, Robert De Niro, and he's like so entertaining and memorable and funny. And near the third act, like you said, that whole climactic scene in the mall where you finally see his true colors and his true insecurities and true like darkness come out. It's haunting to witness. Like he's like, it's just truly live wire, and it's some of the most memorable cinema you could imagine. And I think De Niro, the amount of understatedness that he puts to this character is just hilarious and just ultimately heartbreaking.
See, and it's so funny that you bring it up because that's exactly kind of why it didn't make the list. Because you're right. Because the whole movie, I'm like, okay, he's just a schlub. He's hanging out with Sam Jackson, whatever. And then he's there in the mall. He shoots Bridget Fonda. I'm like, there it is. Finally, that's it. And then the next scene,
the whole point. Like you,
right? But then the next scene, he dies. I'm like, it was the only time. It was the only time I've ever been like, oh man, Tarantino killed the character off too quickly. But you're right. Where could he have gone after that? Like it makes sense.
Where could he have gone after?
Right? No, you're right. That's the thing. I can't disagree with it. But it's just like it's one of those things where me selfishly being like, oh man, that's the character I wanted the whole time.
And one more thing I wanted to say is like, as amazing as Robert Forster is, and De Niro actually like wanted to play that character.
which is interesting because
he wanted to play the Robert Forster, but he convinced De Niro to play this character.
it's
And
so funny because in a way I kind of would have preferred if De Niro had played the Robert Forster character, especially since you told me about that
that's what I mean.
Sylvester
It would have
Stallone
been
casting.
typical. It would have been too
Yeah,
typical.
you're right. You're right.
But,
You're right.
like in Stallone's case, it would have been more exciting because like he really hadn't had, even that was before Copland. Like he hadn't even had
You're
like a
right.
role.
You're right. Because they were the same year, but what was released first in '97? Jackie Brown or Copland?
I think they came out like in December at the same time.
Let me check.
I think they
Because
did.
Jackie
I think they came out pretty.
Jackie Brown was Christmas, December
Jackie Brown
25th.
was definitely Christmas.
Yep, and then
I
Copland
think they were both
was
December.
August.
Oh, it was August.
Yeah, Copland was
whatever.
August. Jackie Brown was December.
Yeah, whatever. Maybe there was a scheduling conflict with that, but Robert De Niro got to do both, so whatever.
It's true.
But Stallone, like that would have been interesting, like for
Yeah.
him in like that kind of a role. Like,
Stallone never worked with Tarantino.
and yeah, who knows? Maybe the next one.
Yeah.
All right. What's your number?
All right, my number 9.
What's your number?
I'll admit this one. It's very, very, very much a personal choice, and the reason being is because this is the last movie that I watched with my grandpa while he was still alive. My dad. This is one of my dad's all-time favorite movies. Like whenever my dad talked about like some of the greatest movies that he'd ever seen, this was one of them. And I finally got to watch it with my grandpa literally before he died. It was Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America. And the thing about this movie is it's one of those movies that I had to sit with for a long time to be like, wait, isn't this just doing what Godfather did? Why does everybody love this? You know? And I had to sit on it. And then I had to sit on it for a while. And then I especially like, that scene in the back of the hearse with the yikes.
With Elizabeth McGovern,
yeah, that scene. And I realized I'm like, oh my God. And especially ironically, after seeing The Brutalist gave me so much more context for this movie. I'm like, oh my God, he's doing the anti-American dream. Godfather is the American dream. This is the anti-American dream, where again, you're the poor immigrant. You're scraping and scrimping and scrapping your way up until you get to the big time, only to realize that again, you do a couple of years in jail. Your friends are gonna do some shit behind your back. You realize they don't have your back. You have different wants. You have different needs. The thing about this movie that's so that sets it apart from the movies of its ilk, the Deer Hunters, the Godfathers, and all that, is the fact that it's simultaneously a coming of age story in addition to an American crime epic. That, if anything, I would argue that this is more of a coming of age story than what's it called? Than a crime epic. And so what's interesting about De Niro's performance in this movie is even though again he's not there obviously when they're kids and such, unlike a Godfather which is more of a passing of the torch kind of a movie, here you're seeing him grow and progress, and you're seeing kind of all of the different time periods and timelines and kind of realizing the futility of that dream and seeing him realize that in real time. There's a lot more to this performance, and it's very, very layered too. And with his interactions, again, with a lot of like James Woods, Joe Pesci, Burt Young, some of the other guys, you almost see him develop almost this disdain for this lifestyle, even though he himself has committed horrible, awful, despicable deeds. And he's constantly got this conflict in him of it's like, is this something that I really want versus, outside of, again, this is just the only life that I've ever known. To the point where he even says when James Woods tells him, he's like, you'll always have that stink of the streets in you. And he's like, yeah, but I like the stink of the streets. It keeps me smart. It keeps me fresh, And there's something really, really interesting to that dichotomy that I really appreciate. And really, obviously, again, besides the fact that this movie is unbelievable, the fact that this was the last movie that Leone directed, and he directs it like a fucking pro. 4 hours goes by, and even though it's very meticulously paced, it's worth every minute, if you ask me. So yeah, Once Upon a Time in America. Again, if Deer Hunter had been on there, if I'd seen Deer Hunter probably would have been on there. But because it's not, I'm like, yeah, it had to be this.
All right. My number 8 is Midnight Run.
All right, that works because my number 8 is also Midnight Run.
Ooh, terrific.
Look at that.
Yeah, one of the great comedies of the 80s. Robert De Niro plays Jack Walsh. He's a bounty hunter, and he's on the run after Charles Grodin, this mob accountant who's just fucking like
Awesome. He's
running for his
so
life,
good.
and he's so amazing. Charles Grodin, one of the greatest comedic actors who's ever lived, and rest in peace. And he's so amazing. Yaphet Kotto, rest in peace. John Ashton, rest in peace.
Yeah, a
Jesus
lot of
Christ.
people for this movie are dead.
Dennis Farina, rest in peace.
Dennis Farina, rest in peace.
Oh my
He's the only
god.
supporting actor alive from this movie besides De Niro. Joe Pantoliano. Is he the only one that's still alive?
Yikes.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
But yeah, this is like, what can I say? But like, this is like a perfect like father son movie to watch. It's great. It's hilarious. It's classic. It's rewatchable. There's nothing else I could say about it. It's amazing, and their chemistry, their anti chemistry slash chemistry is
Oh, it's so good.
incredible, and it's just endlessly rewatchable. I love
Yeah,
it.
I love this movie watching it. I rewatched this. This was one of the first movies that I watched when I was living up in Oswego, and I just had it's just so much fun. It's just so much fun. And again, the fact that this is again is I believe this is the first like real comedy that De Niro was in, because I wouldn't consider any of like King of Comedy is not a comedy to me, obviously, even
Oh,
though it's
it's
in the title.
obviously, it's definitely it's a dark comedy. The King of
Yeah.
Comedy. Are you kidding me?
Okay, but like not a comedy in the sense of this, which is just a
No,
straight
it's
comedy. But
no, yeah.
it's him doing it's a road movie, it's a buddy movie. It's the like again just the fact that those two like they're not hate each other, but they're in a situation where they're kind of forced to tolerate each other. And De Niro is literally just like shut the fuck up like every other word, and it's just like just let me do my job. And Grodin's not like trying to like make his life difficult, but it's like the fact of it's like, well, the alternative is if I go with you peacefully, I die, you know, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to do that. So it's just like the constant back and forth of how he makes his life difficult, how he fakes being afraid of planes, and then the revelation when that comes later on, and basically how he slowly wins De Niro over to his side. I make it more of the case for Charles Grodin than I am for De Niro, but De Niro is great in this. The fact that he kind of goes from being like this very hard edge man of principle, I'm here, I do a job, I get out, to, you know, kind of being a little bit more warm and friendly. And again, it's like a classic 80s comedy that just happens to star Robert De Niro. But the thing is that 80s comedies don't feel like, I guess you could say, like regular comedies. They feel like just like regular, you know, other genres that just happen to be funny. So that's kind of what makes this really special. So, all right, you're number 7.
7, Mean Streets, Johnny Boy.
Oh my God. That's it. Another one we have in common. That's also my number 7, Mean Streets.
Right on.
Look at that. 2 back-to-back in a row.
Yeah, Scorsese. This is like his first like great movie, like his first like
Yeah.
elite, like holy shit, who is this guy who's made this movie? And the whole cast is great. Keitel is the lead, but De Niro steals every scene as this
Yes.
character who's been like ripped off in so many movies. Probably the best example of somebody who's done like a great job with that was like Nat Wolff in Palo Alto. But other than that, like this performance was just so like one of a kind and under recognized. And this is the '70s performance that he should have been getting an Oscar win for supporting actor. So
Yeah.
Mean Streets.
Yeah, my thing with this movie that exactly that you brought up is the fact that again, this type of character, kind of like the, for lack of a better word, the fuck up best friend, you know, the Dante to not Dante, oh my God, what's his name? Randall. The Randall to Dante and Clerks, the Sam Rockwell, the Colin Farrell, the 7 Psychopaths. You always have this dynamic in movies where you have the one kind of more straight-laced character who kind of does what he does just because he needs to, and then the other one who just kind of is a fuck up, loves it, and just loves the lifestyle. And that's De Niro in this movie. I feel like you could make the argument that this is kind of the first time that you see that type of relationship on screen, you know, where you have Keitel who's trying to be more of like, you know, a more dignified individual who like wants to be more of like, you know, a charismatic guy versus De Niro is Johnny Boy, who is just the definition of it's like, I am a delinquent, I know what I am, and I love what I am, you know, even though no matter how many people I have to screw over in order to continue to maintain this lifestyle that I live, you know? And like from the minute that he shows up on screen, you're like, okay, this guy is trouble with a capital T. But again, it's that classic thing of it's like, again, you should dump this guy immediately, but like we grew up together. We you know, we know these streets together. We've known each other like, again, basically since we were babies. So again, like those types of bonds, those are ones that are broken easily overnight, and it doesn't bode well for them near the end. But yeah, it's really, again, I would say it's De Niro's first like kind of coming on the scenes kind of movie. You know, he'd been auditioning for a while. You know, he had I think he had Bang the Drum Slowly this year as well. He auditioned for Godfather 1, didn't get it, but this was kind of really his big emergence. And then he wins the Oscar a year later for Godfather 2, and we're off from there. So yeah, Mean Streets. All right, let's see if we go 3 for 3 in terms of what we have for number 6.
Number 6, Silver Linings Playbook.
Nope. All right, first one that we don't have in common because that was an honorable mention.
He was very. I think this is an underrated performance because I think he's an OCD fucking Phillies fanatic who's also like gambling like out of nowhere. Like he's such a fucking hard ass to Bradley Cooper, and probably a big reason why he has like the illness that he has, Bradley Cooper. But it's such a compelling, heartbreaking, amazing performance, and he arguably should have won that year. Personally, out of the people nominated,
out of people nominated.
Yeah, I just think he's incredible. That movie's incredible, and it's just such a good performance. Just the speech that he gives to him at the dance near the end is just so like perfect.
Yeah, it's great. Great movie, great performance. Again, came close to making my top 10. It's great. There's not much more that I can add to it. My number 6, you are probably going to be mad at how low I have this, but my number 6 is The King of Comedy.
King of Comedy, yeah.
Yep. A recent addition to this list. I saw this last year or 2 years ago. I don't remember exactly. I think it was like right when Killers of the Flower Moon was about to come out. And I remember being like, okay, this is one of the 2 movies that Phillips homaged with Joker. And so I saw it. And the thing that threw me off about this movie wasn't the DeNiro performance. That wasn't really it. Like I'd seen him do this type of a performance before. It was more so kind of the element of how real it felt in terms of like kind of how he was able to toe that line of like being like an obsessive fan. Well, again, like, but also like being like very meticulous about like kind of his journey with how he was going to get on stage, where he's like, I know that like kind of, I know I'm this outsider. I know I'm only going to ever be viewed this way, but like I deserve my chance of success. And the world is only ever going to see me this one kind of a way, you know? But the fact that he goes the whole movie, if anything, it's so funny because me watching this movie just solidified why I hated Joker more, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, this is the fucking Joker. Just, you know, if anything, I like Todd Phillips is trying to give like a little bit more credence to it, where again, it's just this kind of, for lack of a better word, obsessive fanboy who really, again, just wants what he thinks he deserves. And then the irony being that once he gets it, once his kind of insane plan to capture the Jerry Lewis character to get himself on TV goes through, he proves to actually be a fucking good comedian. So it kind of shows that, like, even though he's going to jail at the end, he kind of knew what he was doing, if anything. And that's kind of like what gets me, is kind of Scorsese just really knowing what he was doing in terms of the social commentary and really, really being ahead of the curve, where again, now TikTok has kind of made it so that these, these types of fans can just, make a fan video adoring, whatever pop star or idol they're idolizing and such. But back then, like this was really like kind of the only way that you could like, interact with the people who you were a fan of, essentially, And so, and the way that De Niro does this, where again, it's kind of the nervous little tics, but also like he always knows exactly what he's doing. Like there's an insanity to it, but he never lets it out. Like he never has the moment where he like completely loses it. He keeps it all buttoned in the whole time. And it's brilliant what he does here. Really, the only reason why I have the other roles higher is because I just enjoy them more ultimately. But this is one of the best of all time.
All right. Number 5 for me is The Irishman.
Okay.
I think this is the most brilliant performance he's given. I just think this is the most full body performance he's given as Frank Sheeran. Yeah, is the CGI weird and kind of unnecessary? Yeah. But is it a little drawn out? Maybe a little bit. It's a little bit. But he's incredible in this. Like, what else could you say? He should have been nominated that year. It was kind of a shame that he wasn't. Very odd, and it's weird that that didn't win anything. But it's a brilliant film. It's a great movie. It's one of the very best Netflix films. It's my favorite until Don't Look Up. And yeah, it's just a great Scorsese crime gangster film, and I just think he's great in it, and it's like with Joe Pesci, Al Pacino at their best as well. Like it's just what else can you ask for?
Yeah.
He's like incredible in this, like, and it's heartbreaking by the end too. By the time
Yeah.
he's in the nursing home and everything, it's great.
Definitely the most heartbreaking. For me, it's like, and I love De Niro throughout this whole movie, but for me, like the real kind of power from that performance doesn't come until the end when he gets the call where he has to kill Pacino. And just like
Oh
everything that
yeah,
he does from the moment that Pesci tells him that he has to kill Pacino all the way up until the end when he's alone in the nursing home sitting there and asking the priest to leave the door open. That to me is like, yes, that's unbelievable. Some of the greatest acting I've ever seen on any movie. But the first 2/3 leading up to it with the wonky CG, it's still, yeah. Although horrifically snubbed that year, if you ask me. My number 5, some people may consider this a little low. The only reason why is because, again, the movie itself, it's not my favorite. It's still an absolute masterpiece, but my number 5 is Raging Bull.
wow.
Yeah, I know. I have it low compared to a lot of other people. Again, it just comes down to I like the top 4 performances more. That's all it comes down to. Again,
Mhm.
this is him. It's weird that like he follow that like his. I'm gonna preface with this. It's weird that so he has the 2 Oscar wins, right? Supporting for Godfather 2 and lead for this movie, Raging Bull. Godfather 2, he's doing a take on a Brando performance because it's a younger version of the character that Brando already played. And this movie is his most Brando-esque in terms of portraying vulnerability through that over burgeoning masculinity where he is just so like it's in the title, a bull of a man, to the point where he doesn't realize that it's that same masculinity, that fragile masculinity that is just destroying all of the relationships around him. Like he is just he is it's definitely his most physically transformative performance. The fact that he gains and loses so much weight over the course of this movie in his portrayal of Jake LaMotta. But it's crazy when you consider that this is a quote unquote boxing movie, because I personally don't think of this as a boxing movie. Obviously, yeah, there's boxing in it. It's about a boxer, but the fact that, again, people are more willing to make the statement on this being like a statement on the kind of the inherent fragility of masculinity, as opposed to saying, yeah, it's a boxing biopic about Jake LaMotta.
Yeah, it's a
It is a
biopic.
biopic,
Yeah,
yes, but
yeah.
I feel like this is the biopic that, like, again, like nobody nobody talks about this as being a biopic the way that they talk about The Social Network being a biopic. You know what I mean? Like they look at
No.
this. Oh, I guess that might just be me then, but like I watched this and I was like, yeah, this is just somebody who is just drives everything away from him, and by the time that he realizes it, it's way too late, and all he's left with is kind of like the ghost of his past, and you even see it at the end. It's like that's all he does is just relive his glory days and tell stories at clubs, and that's all that he's left with ultimately. That's his legacy, and it's sad. Honestly, it's one of the saddest movies I've ever seen, and I think that might be part of the reason why it's only number 5. So, but yeah, Raging Bull had to be on there.
Yeah, that's surprising. All right. Interesting. I'm trying to work out in my head what the rest of your list is gonna be.
Yeah,
It's gonna
it's
be
not
interesting.
expected.
For Heat.
Yes.
Neil
All right,
McCullers.
that's another one. Oh no, sorry, I'm wrong. Oh no, I'm right. We have this in the same spot. Heat.
All right. One of the greatest films
Oh
of all
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite
Awesome.
movies.
I rewatched this movie during COVID based on your suggestion. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. That was one of the greatest rewatches I've ever done.
Yeah, we were talking best 3-hour movies
Yeah.
also.
It's between this and Wolf of Wall Street for me.
Yeah. I think it might be this.
I go back and forth, but this is, oh man. Again, it's the
Yeah.
movie that started the rewatchables. It's
My
incredible.
favorite, fuck them. But like we're better than them.
We
But
are.
like no, but I really love this movie. Like it's one of the greatest films. It came out the year I was born. It's so rewatchable. It's so good. It's so like crisp and well shot
Yeah.
and well edited and everything and cast. One of the greatest cast. But Neil McCauley, Robert De
Yeah.
Niro with the goatee man himself. What a performance, man.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
fucking commanding, terrifying performance.
Yeah, and
Great.
I love that. Again, this is the movie. I'm so happy that even though they had Godfather 2 together, this was the movie that finally brought Pacino and De Niro face to face,
And
because
that diner scene, man.
one of the greatest of all time.
Top 5 scenes.
Again,
Man.
Nolan has even talked about how that scene and really this whole movie is like the inspiration for The Dark Knight. But yeah, like this is
That's
again,
apparent. Yeah.
One of the all-time greats. Again, just I mean the shooting, the way that it's shot, the cinematography, the editing, the inherent nature, the inherent inescapable nature of it, the fact of like the cold, calculating, merciless nature of like, again, these are just men who are doing their job. But again, how thankless of an existence it is for both sides, really, because even though Pacino's in a marriage, it's falling apart because of his dedication to the job, and you see that reflected in De Niro as he tries to form this relationship with this woman that he meets, and it's part of the reason why the diner scene is so iconic, because they're like, this life, it takes everything from you. It takes everything and it gives you nothing. But we're both too good at it to do anything else, And it's funny because I think the part of the reason why De Niro was so perfectly juxtaposed against Pacino is that as loud and over the top and insane as Pacino is, De Niro is so understated, so cool. And even when he gets angry, he still never loses his cool. I mean, come on, when he's like, I'm talking to an empty telephone. I'm talking to an empty telephone because there was a dead man on the end of this fucking line, and he hangs up. Great. One of the all-timer movies, all-time performances. I love it. Heat.
All right. Are you talking to me? It's Taxi Driver, number 3. Travis Bickle.
Fuck yeah.
Such an annoyingly overquoted character, but De Niro is so perfect in this. It's perfect. And it has one of the all-time great scores, one of the best, some of the best direction of the 70s. It's a movie that really creeps on you and gets better over time. And it really is sensational and just super realistic and just original for the time. I would say for a movie like that to come out right in the middle of the 70s, like this was like such a nice prescient film, I would say. It was just so cool. And yeah, did it spawn some annoying like rip-offs? Sure. But you can't beat Taxi Driver. It's a great film. Jodie Foster's make to fame from this film. Harvey Keitel, Albert Brooks, Sybil Shepherd. Amazing film. You talking to me? Yeah, Dom, I am talking to you. Taxi Driver, number 3.
Scorsese in one of the greatest director cameo
Oh,
inserts
one
in
of
a
the
movie
best
ever.
cameos. Yeah,
Ever.
right.
Oh
Great.
man, dude, I rewatched that movie on the big screen in January a year ago. This year, one of the greatest all-time theater experiences of my life.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So your number 3 is Taxi Driver, and my number 3 is Goodfellas. I'll admit it's a little bit more the movie than the performance, especially the parts that you brought up. For me, I just think of the moments where it's like when he's going up to Henry and he's like, Henry, I can't take it anymore. I can't. You got to do something, Henry. I can't take it. It's like all of the De Niro isms that I'd heard about growing up but never got into. This was the first time that I really saw them, because I saw this in Taxi Driver around the same time. But Taxi Driver is just such like a planet in and of itself that I feel like all the other performances revolve around. But this is kind of where like the De Niro isms started. And it's
never
notable
rat on
for
your
them.
friends.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut. It's great. And again, the scene when, again, like the song starts playing on the jukebox. I'm horrible with songs, so you'll know it better. And he's looking at Frank Sivero, who he knows he's going to kill. And then the montage of all the bodies that he's dropped, all because of the Lufthansa heist. Again, this to me is kind of where the epitome of the smiling at your face while stabbing a knife into your back comes from. The fact that he is just so cold, so ruthless, so calculating in everything that he does, all with a big old smile on his face until he doesn't have any smiling left to do near the end. Again, the genius of this movie is the fact that it shows the full crime arc, where you get into it when you're young because you're dumb and you don't know any better. You're in like the cool phase. You're making money. You got the girls, all that. Then things start to get a little tight. You go away. You do some jail time. You realize how much of an effect that has on your family. You start to make some not so nice deals in order to make ends meet. You realize your friends aren't really your friends the way you thought they were, and then it all goes to shit, and you end up turning into a federal informant. The whole life cycle of being a gangster is covered in that movie. And De Niro, again, he may not give the flashiest or most memorable performance compared to Liotta or Pesci or Paul Sorvino or Lorraine Bracco, but he is just as crucial a part in this movie. Again, he'd already had the working relationship going with Scorsese for years now, and Scorsese just put him in there because he knew that this was a part that he could nail easily after already getting some of the best work ever out of him with Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. But yeah, this is, again, it had to be on there. So like I said, I'm giving it credit, and it's this high up on the list more for the iconicness of it rather than the performance, but still, it's good, fellas. Come on.
All right. Number 2, Raging Bull. Jake LaMotta. Again, what can I say about Raging Bull that no one's ever said about Raging Bull? Like it's like a brilliant, harrowing performance. He's like just downright scary in this. Joe Pesci adds levity. Kathy Moriarty is such an heartbreaking angel in this. But like De Niro just plays like a true bastard of a person who accomplished great things, but it was just a harrowing experience. This is another movie like Taxi Driver that just grows on you and just like things like, no, this is a perfect movie. It was perfectly well done and everything. It's just not the easiest one to sit through.
Definitely not.
Did De Niro deserve his Oscar? Yes, and I do consider this partly a boxing movie. It's a biopic about a boxer, like you were saying.
Well, it is a boxing movie for sure. I said I just don't think of it like that. Like when I
Like
think
The
of that
Fighter,
movie,
too. Like The Fighter is also like you could consider that a biopic about a boxer.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. But The Fighter, I even think of as more of a boxing. This is like the only boxing movie I've ever seen where I don't think
it's less
every
about
other
the matches.
Right,
than it
exactly.
is
That's what I
about-
mean. Every other boxing movie I've seen, I think of the boxing in some element. This is the only one where, again, because the fights are in it, but they're so
not about the
minimal.
sport.
Exactly. It's not about the sport. That's what I'm saying.
More about spousal abuse. All right, Dominic, what's your number 2?
All right, my number 2.
It's The Godfather Part 2?
The Godfather Part 2.
Ooh,
It's The Godfather Part 2. Listen, it's my second favorite movie of all time. So that obviously has a lot going for it. It's the fact that it's the fact that these movies just mean so much to me because of the context in which I saw them. But so going into De Niro, right? So it's funny that you mentioned that they easily could have put the De Niro parts into the first movie because the original Godfather novel, which I have read, these parts are in that novel. The Michael parts of Part 2, completely original. Coppola came up with that on his own. They're not in any written novel that Puzo came up with. The De Niro parts, the De Niro parts of Part 2 are all in Part 1. So that's for starters. And the fact that Coppola was able to tell this is inherently polar, the different story that again is he's telling a period piece inside of a sequel. You know, it's the majesty of the movie. It's the genius of the movie. It's a prequel and a sequel at the same time. You're using De Niro and Pacino to contrast kind of the two opposing lifestyles that kind of emerge. What led into kind of, for lack of a better word, the golden era that we saw at the end of in Part 1, and then the post golden era when it became more corporatized, more business-like, with Michael once he takes over the family. And the fact that, like you were saying, the fact that De Niro has, 5 words of English in this movie? Not even. And you're right. It is a more stone cold, alienating performance. The fact that he's not speaking English in this movie. But if anything, I'm like, you need that. You need it because the whole thing about this version of Vito is that he's an alien. He is a stranger in a strange land. But it's the fact that he is able to he's smart enough to be able to, even though he may not understand the language that well, he's smart enough to be able to make his way through and understand the necessary ladder that he has to climb in order to kind of make his way for his, at the time, small and growing family to eventually become the Don of New York, essentially. And the fact that he is able to accomplish all of that and then at the end still go back and get the revenge for his family that he has been waiting a lifetime to do. Again, this is a guy whose father was killed before I think he even really had a chance to know him. They stumbled upon his brother's body as they were bringing his father's funeral casket to them and watched his mother get gunned down in front of him. All before the age of, he was 8, 9 years old? Something like that? Mm-hmm. And you just think about, the mental toll and damage that takes. And obviously, again, it was that era where, you had to survive, ultimately. The mental health was non-existent at that time period in history. But you just gotta take into account the effects that has on someone as they're getting older. Again, I've watched this movie a lot. I've watched Godfather 2 and really the first two Godfathers, really the whole trilogy, but Godfather 2, I've watched this movie more than I've watched most movies in my entire life. So I've had a lot of time to think about this. And the fact that De Niro was able to portray all of that, again, with no English, all the way down to when he sticks the knife in the guy who killed his family, and he's like, "This is for you." Like that hits home for me personally. This is it's that thing of where it's like I can't really rationalize it logically when I'm talking about something that means so much to me personally. When I've had family members who act exactly like characters that I see in these movies. Like I talked about this a lot. When I saw potentially in this movie, Michael Vigazzo, brilliant in the movie. Again, the fact that was supposed to be Clemenza and it's an entirely different character, such a mind fuck to me. But I watched that performance in that movie, and I'm like, I'm like, grandpa? Like, what? Like, that's exactly how my grandpa acted. Like, it was uncanny how well it landed that. So, like I said, it's more of a personal argument than, say, like an objective thing. But if you ask me, rightfully won the Oscar. Even if John Cassell, sure, you could make the argument, gives the better performance. It's one for the ages to me. Like I said, there's only one that I have over this. Otherwise, this was my number one De Niro forever until I saw Taxi Driver.
All right, my number one is the king of comedy, Scorsese. Rupert Pupkin. Yeah. One of my favorite films of all time. To me, it's the most dynamic Robert De Niro performance. You get to see probably every side of him. He is scary in this to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, yes.
Creepy. He is hilarious. He is not in the way you'd expect. And he's pathetic. He's just gets to play like a total cretin in this movie. He's a little bit more disturbing than even Travis Bickle at points, especially that he actually gets to fulfill what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just an all-time dark comedy classic. It bombed in the 80s, but rightfully got quickly a cult following, and the Joker was spawned out of it. And I do love the Joker, but the King of Comedy is a classic for a reason. Sandra Bernhard's amazing in it. Jerry Lewis, immaculate performance. And his dynamic with De Niro is just never been topped, I would say, in that kind of dynamic. It's just so cool seeing Jerry Lewis play a more serious role than De Niro, and vice versa. It's just so funny to me and just so well structured and written and weird. Just the scene where De Niro is in the having the date with Diane Abbott, who was his wife, I believe, at the time.
Yeah, I believe she was.
You see the guy Maury, the fucking the suit guy in Goodfellas in the background, just mimicking everything that Robert De Niro is doing. It's just one of the most fascinating movies I'll ever watch and rewatch for the rest of my life, and it's just amazing. And he's just so captivating in it from start to finish, and he's just unrelenting in this.
Yeah.
Truly, and that might be off-putting for some people, and I know he wasn't nominated for this, but this to me might be his most exciting and dynamic performance. So that's why it's my number one.
Definitely. And like I said, I understand why if that's your number one, 100%. And it's ironic that the two movies that we would both argue are the two prime inspirations. I say, well, no, they are the two prime inspirations for Joker are our number ones, because your number one is King of Comedy and my number one's Taxi Driver. I mean, it had to be. It had to be. This is one of those seminal film school movies where I watched. It was one of a couple movies. It was this. It was Do the Right Thing, and I forgot what the third one was. A couple other classics in there as well. A couple Charlie Chaplin movies, Bringing Up Baby. The classic seminal, the first couple films that you watch when you're in film school in order to learn about film and learn about the importance of film history. And I watched this. It's funny actually because I watched this movie at the same time as Ryan Bisson, who was in the same class as me, which was wild. And I'm like, Ryan Bisson? I'm like, what? You know who that is? He's a dude that went to high school with us. And I'm like, what are you doing in a film class? I'm like, you're in the movies? What? And it was just again, this is one of those movies you hear about for forever, again, because you talking to me this is a staple of film history, of film culture. It's, oh my God. It's everything that you would want. And the way that this movie is aged, like, frighteningly well. It only gets better with each passing day, you know, as we get closer and closer, as we kind of devolve back into the hellscape that New York was in the 70s, you know, and how Travis just represented this type of person that everybody kind of knew existed, but really, really did not want to kind of acknowledge or believe was really a thing. Now we see Travis Bickles every day. You know, I see and interact with more Travis Bickles in a day than I can count. But back at that time, it was still a little bit of a niche. And this really, really blew the door open on this type of personality and this kind of like thinking in America. You know, a lot of veterans as well were feeling this way, you know, kind of the dejected, the outsiders, the people who really couldn't find their place into society and kept trying to find different avenues in, but they always had that one thing that people found just a little bit too off-putting or a little bit too strange. You know, the irony being that now, like, you know, obviously, again, like taking somebody to a theater to watch a porno would still not be considered a good idea for a date, but just, you know, in terms of how much more normalized porn has become in our society, the way that it was still kind of viewed as niche and taboo back then. And you know, the fact that, again, you know, he's constantly having little reminders there throughout the movie as far as like, okay, he's not even close to being the craziest or most disturbed person, you know, but he is kind of like aware that he's literally seeing the hierarchy of things play out in front of him, from the really sick and depraved to like the kind of depraved who are just working class trying to get by, to like kind of the snooty nosed working class who are like sticking their noses up at everybody else, pretending like they're better than everybody, to the really rich and powerful. And he sees it all, and he hates it. He wants to do something about it, but he doesn't realize that he's not in any way, shape, or form going to make any sort of a difference or a dent, you know. And he's categorized kind of, and he kind of becomes this vigilante near the end, kind of, sort of, but that's not why he's really doing it. Even though, yes, he's justifying it by saying that he's saving Jodie Foster, that's not why he's doing it. He's doing it because finally he has had all of this pent-up rage, and he has nowhere left to direct it, and he figures, well, if I'm going to die, I may as well take some of these scumbags with me. And again, he directs it towards Harvey Keitel, who gives a despicably good performance. And yeah, it's just the fact that the reason why this is number one is not just because I think this is the best that DeNiro has ever been in anything. And again, my whole thing is when an actor can tell me everything that I need to understand from a character just with the eyes, without uttering a single line of dialogue, because human beings are inherently liars at the end of the day. We never actually say what we really mean, because half the time we don't even really know what we mean, you know? And because we're unable to articulate kind of that primal nature that is the essence of humanity. And which is why I feel like we gravitate towards actors, because actors are able to kind of captivate that and portray that in a way that inherently makes sense, whether there's dialogue there or not, you know. And you see it in the type of performances like what Daniel Day-Lewis does in There Will Be Blood, like what there's a lot of different other performances, like also what De Niro kind of does in Godfather 2, which is why I gravitated so much towards that. You know, the fact of these guys when they're able to say so much with saying so little. And again, Bill Hader talked about a Taxi Driver, and the Coen brothers both were massive inspirations for Barry and what he was doing with that, because he wanted to tackle a lot of the same themes that he talked about this in on the many podcasts that he was on. He wanted to kind of tackle a lot of the similar kind of things that were plaguing Travis as with Barry, you know, and kind of show that, like, even though like a person may have had like shitty things happen to them, it doesn't excuse the things that they do end up doing, and showing that, like, yeah, at the end of the day, these people are sick. But understanding them can maybe kind of put them on the path towards like kind of bettering ourselves overall, you know, even if there is at the end of the day kind of that's what ultimately was so sad about this as well, is the fact that at the end of the day there's nothing you can do to help them. People are only capable of really helping themselves, and Travis tries, he does, but he doesn't know how to do it the right way. And he's an, I don't want to say sympathetic character. He's definitely an empathetic character, because you definitely understand where he's coming from, I feel like, to a certain extent. And that's the brilliance of this movie, is he makes you understand and empathize with the character that you otherwise would probably just look at it and be like, oh, that's so sickening, it's so disgusting. I would never do anything like that. It's like, yeah, try and go through the circumstances that he's been through. Then say that you would never do something like that. Number one, Taxi Driver, one of the greats of all time.
Great pick.
Yep. All right, so we have 7 choices in common, which means we have 3 to choose for the last one. So we have Taxi Driver, King of Comedy, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Heat, Heat, Mean Streets, and Midnight Run in commons. That leaves 3 spots. So I say you pick one, I pick one, and then we each vote on the third choice. My pick, Undisputed Godfather 2. That's making it in there.
Silver Linings Playbook.
Silver Linings Playbook is your pick. All right, and now for the third pick that we each vote on. So what's left? So you have Irishman. I have Once Upon a Time in America. You have
Irishman.
Jackie Brown. I have Cape Fear. You go Irishman?
Yeah.
All right. I can hear that argument. All right. We'll do it. Irishman. All right. So that's the only annoying thing is it doesn't let you do what's it called? Okay, so let me see here. Yeah. All right. So what's gonna be our number 1 though? That's what's tricky.
We can do Taxi Driver.
You want to do Taxi Driver at 1? All right, let's do Taxi Driver at 1, and then King of Comedy, I'll say, is 2.
Nice.
I'll do that.
Raging Bull at 3.
Okay, and then I'll do Heat at 4, and then
Yes.
Godfather 2.
Yes.
All right, that works. So Raging Bull at 3, Heat at 4, and Godfather 2 at 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3. No, not Raging Bull. Heat. Oh, wait, that's why. Okay, so I just gotta delete that. All right, so Heat is at 4. Let me get rid of that. Okay, there we go. And then Godfather 2 at 5. All right, so 6. What do we have left? So what are the last 3 that we have in common? We have the last 2. So
Midnight Run and what else?
Midnight Run and Mean Streets we have for that. So
Mean-
Midnight Run, Mean Streets,
and Midnight Run.
Okay. So Mean Streets 6. And then Midnight Run at 7. All right. And then we have we have one more in common. Oh, Goodfellas. Goodfellas at 8.
Yeah.
Okay. And that leaves Silver Linings Playbook and what am I missing here? Silver Linings Playbook and you said your choice. Well, yeah, Silver Linings was your choice. Our combined, my choice is Godfather 2, and then we both. Oh, Irishman. So that leaves Silver Linings and Irishman for 9 and 10. So what are we putting it where?
Silver Linings.
Okay, so Silver Linings at 9.
Yeah.
All right. Silver Linings at 9, and then 10 is The Irishman. Then let me make sure I got that all right. Mean Streets, Midnight Run. Okay, and then get rid of that. All right, people. And with that being said, our Robert De Niro Hall of Fame is as follows. Number 10, The Irishman, Martin Scorsese. Number 9, Silver Linings Playbook, David O. Russell. Number 8, Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese. Number 7, Midnight Run, Martin Brest. Number 6, Mean Streets, Martin Scorsese. Number 5, The Godfather 2, Francis Ford Coppola. Number 4, Heat, Michael Mann. And then these top 3 are all Scorsese. I'm not going to run through the directors, but number 3, Raging Bull. Number 2, The King of Comedy. And number 1, Taxi Driver. All right. Wow. This is definitely one of the most legendary Hall of Fames that I think we have ever assembled, to say the least. Like, these are all banger movies. And yeah, good shit.
We had Midnight Run in there, right?
Yeah, we have Midnight Run in there. Yep, that is number 7.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, we did. All right. So, like I said, you guys could all go back to watching the Severance season 2 finale if you aren't watching it already. I was going to save it for tomorrow morning, but I think I'm probably just going to end up watching it because, yeah, I don't feel like waiting and I really want to watch it. So, Dustin, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Mr. G movie reviews on YouTube, Dustin Mason on Letterboxd.
All right. And you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across full platforms. You guys know the rest. Go watch Severance. We'll see you guys next month for the next
Jack
Actors
Black,
Hall of
maybe.
Fame. Maybe. We'll see. See you guys.